Hi, fifth graders. Today's topics are going to be division with decimal quotients, word problems, dividing decimals, and simplifying fractions. We're going to get started with dividing with decimal quotients. So what this means is that you're going to be dividing as you regularly do, but your answer is going to be a decimal, or your quotient is going to be a decimal. So let's do like an easy problem, like number 3. So we see that 2 is given to us first. So the 2 is going to be our dividend, and then our divisor is going to be the second number, which is 5. So 5 is going to go on the outside, and 2 is going to go on the inside. Now we're going to have a decimal because we're used to having the bigger number on the inside and the smaller number on the outside, right? So as we can see, 5 cannot go into 2, right? So we're going to put a 0 right here on top of the 2. And you would think that your answer is a 0, but it's actually not. We know that behind the 2 is going to be a decimal because 2 is the same thing as 2.0, 2.000. That's why we have a decimal behind the 2. And we bring the decimal up here too. And then, as I said, 2 is the same thing as 2.0, so I'm going to put a 0 right here. And now we know that 5 can go into 20. We just disregard the decimal when we're actually dividing. So instead of 5 going to 2.0, it's going to be 5 going to 20. And we know that 5 can go into 20 4 times. So we put 4 right here. And 5 can go into 20 4 times without any like remainder, or evenly. And because we know that 5 times 4 is 20, and we just subtract 20 from 20, and we get 0. So our final answer would be 0.4. Now, if you don't think that 0.4 is your actual answer, you could check your work by doing 0.4 times 5. And when you multiply 0.4 by 5, you should get an answer of 2. So let's see what we get. 4 times 5 is 20, so bring down the 0, bring up the 2. And we know that 0 times 5 is 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2, so bring down the 2. And there's only one decimal place, so we put one decimal place. And we see that we get 2, and 2 is equal to 2. So our final answer for number 3 would be 0.4. It's actually really easy dividing and having decimal quotients. You just need to make sure that you bring up the decimal point, and this only occurs when the number or dividend is the number inside the rad or the the division sign, or the dividend is smaller than the divisor. Now we're going to go with word problems. Let's go with number 4. Number 4 says, Dedra went to the hardware store and bought 18 identical wooden boards. When Dedra placed all the boards end to end, the line was 20.9 meters long. To the nearest hundredth of a meter, how long was each board? So we know that each board was 20.9 meters long, right? And I'm sorry. The whole line, the whole line when put end to end was 20.9 meters long. So that's going to be your total length. But we know that Dedra bought 18 identical wooden boards, right? So we need to find out how much was each board, and we know that in total it was 20.9, but we know that Dedra bought 18, and to find 1, we would divide the total length by the number of wooden boards we have. So in our case, it'll be 18 on the outside, so it's going to be 20. Oops, that looks like a rod. It's going to be 20.9 divided by 18. So let's divide. 18 can go into 2 0 times, but 18 can go into 20 1 time. So bring down the 1. put the 1, multiply 18 times 1, which gives us 18. So you subtract 18 from 20, and we get 2. And then you bring up the decimal point right here. And then here, we bring down the 9, and we get 29. And we need to see how many times 18 goes into 29. Let's try 18 times 2. 16, bring up the 1, 2 times 1, 2, 2 plus 1, 3, 36. 36 is way too big for 29, so we're just going to go with 1 again. We get 29 minus 18. 9 minus 8 is 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. And then after the 9, we're going to put another 0. We're going to keep going until we see that everything goes into each other evenly. Or like we have a remainder of 0. So bring down the 0. We get 110. So let's do like 18 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32. Bring down the 2. Bring up the 3. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 72. I think we could go a little bit higher, so let's try 5. 18 times 5. 8 times 5 is 40. Bring down the 0. Bring up the 4. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 4 is 9. We get 90. I think we could go a little bit higher. 18 times, let's try 6. 6 times 8 is 48. Bringing down the 8. Bring up the 4. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 plus 4 is 10. And I think that's going to be the closest we get, right? So let's put the 6. And we know that 18 times 6 is 108. So let's do... Ooh, it's getting a little cramped. We know that 110 minus 108, we get 2. And then once again, bring up the 0, bring down the 0. And we get stuck with 20 again, right? And we know that 18 can go into 20 only one time. So bring up the 1 again. And then subtract. Ooh! Let's move it over here. 20 minus 18. Get a 2 again. Bring down the 0. So it's going to be repeating, right? And it wants us to round to the nearest hundredth of a meter. So this is our 10th place. This is our 100th place. And we know that our 1000th place is a 1. So we know that 1 is less than 5. So we're going to be rounding down. So rounding down in case that means that this 1 turns into a 0. And this 6 just stays the same. So our final answer would be 1.16. Make sure to label it meters. So each board is 1.16 meters long. For word problems, you need to make sure that you label everything correctly and read the directions correctly too. Because in this case, if we didn't, then it would go on and on and on. And remember the rounding rules from the other videos. Now we're going to be dividing decimals. So this is just regular division, just with decimals. So let's number 8 together. We have 89.4 divided by 0.2. So 0.2 goes on the outside, 89.4 goes on the inside. Okay, so the special thing about dividing with decimals is that you're always going to move your decimal back. So you're going to move your decimal until it's at the very end. So we need to bring down, we have to bring back the decimal for 0.2 back once, and it'll be behind everything. And then for 89.4, we need to bring it back once again, and it'll be behind every number, right? So in this case, we're going to need to, for the 0.2 is fine, but for the dividend, we need to bring this decimal back up right here, so you don't forget about it. Now we just divide randomly, as we do. So it's going to be 2 being divided into 894. So let's do that. 2 can go into 8 4 times, so it's going to be 4. 4 times 2 is 8, so we subtract 8, and we get 0. bring down the 9. 2 can go into 9 4 times. Minus 8. We get 1. Bring down the 4. Becomes 14. 2 can go into 14 evenly 7 times. So it'll be 14 minus 14, which is 0. So in this case, we did not need to use the decimal because we got an even remainder of 0. But it's always key to move back the decimal until it's at the very end and make sure that it's in the quotient if it needs to be. And if you want to make sure that your answer is correct, you do 447 times 0.2. So 7 times 2 is 14. Bring down the 4, bring up the 1. 4 times 8 is, oops, I said the answer. 4 times 2 is 8, and then you add 1, which is 9. 4 times 2 is 8, and then a placeholder of 0. And then 0 times anything is just 0, so we're going to put 3 zeros. So 1, 2, 3. Final answer when you add these together is 89.894, right? But we see that 0.2 has a decimal place of 1, but 447 has 0 decimal places. When you add the 0 and 1, you get 1, so your product is going to have 1 decimal place. So the decimal that's here is going to move to the left once, and your final answer should match up with your dividend, which is 89.4. So your final answer for number 8 is 447. So when you're dividing with decimals, just make sure to move your decimal point back. Now let's do simplifying fractions. This is very easy. We just need to look for their greatest common factor. So let's number 2. It gives us 5 over 15, right? And we know that 5 can go into both 5 and 15, right? Because 5 times 1 equals 5 and 5 times 3 equals 15. So we're going to take out 5 from each one. So we said that 5 times 1 equals 5, right? So when we take out 5 from 5, we get 1. And when we take out 5 from 15, we get 3 because 5 times 3 equals 15. So our simplified version of 5 over 15 will be 1/3. And that's your answer. You can check your answer for this by doing 1 over 3 times 5 over 5. And you should get 5 over 15. So 1/3 is your final answer. And that's all I have for you guys today. I hope this video helped you guys a bit.